Hello, hello. Thank you so much for everybody for coming to the show today. Today's topic is building your personal brand with confidence. It's a special episode today because I'm not interviewing just one other person. I'm interviewing two people who I consider to have strong and developed personal brands that express themselves with authenticity. Now, this is a cool episode as well because we're in three different continents, three different cultures, three totally different people, and we're coming together with this one topic. So let me introduce my guests. Anks Patel. Anks Patel is the founder and of Peoplepreneur and is based out of the United Kingdom. Peoplepreneur is a transformative growth platform that creates the tools that enhance one's effectiveness in self leadership. Their mission is to empower and enable the leaders of tomorrow to embrace their calling. His personal brand is memorable, compelling, and thought provoking. Thank you so much for being on our show today, Anks. And I will go ahead and introduce my next guest as well. All right, my next guest is Azehi Etua. Azehi has recently been recognized by Brand Communicators magazine and has been nominated as a top digital leader by Digital Confex for the last 2 consecutive years, as well as being on LinkedIn as a top brand strategy voice. Congratulations on that, by the way. He is based out of Nigeria, and his personal brand is creative, innovative, and industry leading. Together, we will explore what it means to have a developed personal brand with confidence from three different cultures, three different perspectives, views, and parts of the world. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Humbled. Thank you. Thank you, Tara, for having us.
Thanks for having us there.
I
Thanks a
don't know if
lot.
this is going to be messy or is this going to be three different perspectives.
We're going to have fun, I think. I think that is absolutely for sure. But you guys, we're three different perspectives, three different cultures, languages, all that good stuff. But we have all developed personal brands. And, the question is, how did we get started? I think a lot of people, they're catching on to this personal brand term right now. They're recognizing the importance of it. But guys, a lot of people are being misguided. They don't know where to start. They don't know why it's important or if they even need one. So I'd love to hear from you guys on this. Anks, I will go first with you, and let me know, how did you get started developing your personal brand?
So I'll try not to go off on a tangent here. Sometimes when we start going back history, I can start talking. For me, it was. I'll take you as back as uh, where I kind of came from in terms of the perspective that I bring. And that's when I was at university, and there was a lot of hardship during that time. It was probably 5 years of real my darker days, and I was homeless at one point for 5 months, and homelessness was the theme around me at that time. And so obviously I had to make ends meet and didn't have enough money to eat, and we had debt collectors. And so a lot of my perspective today, and in terms of how we build a brand today, has come from that. And in hindsight, everything is a blessing in disguise in hindsight once we've been through something. And I realize today the level of perspective that I have is a contributor from there. And so during that time, one thing that I always questioned was, is this it? And is this where I'm supposed to be? Because I always had a level of inner fire, hope, it could be a word, that I'm meant for more. And with that understanding, I graduated and went out into the world, and I kept following what others said and what others told us to do, the guidance that we had. And as much as I followed, a lot of the stuff didn't work. And I kind of went down this route, and I was doing a lot of graphic design work. And what I was initially calling for was answers to the problems that I experienced. And I went down the strategic route, and more specifically the brand strategy route. And with hindsight now, I can say that a lot of or a lot of the things that we do, the external expression of how we go about our day and our life, sometimes it's not necessarily the thing that it truly is what it's for. So with hindsight, brand strategy for me provided me the ability to shape and shift our mind. And I can see that now. As much as the brand strategy side wasn't as important, what was important to me was the fact that I could help shift and shape our perspective. And as I went into that, I was more inclined to personal development. And I kind of transitioned and I thought, wow, as you build a brand, you can also build people in the right way. If you could build a company, you could build a brand. And so I transferred a lot of that, and it's brought me to where I am today, because I always questioned the things that wasn't working and the things that wasn't serving me. And a lot of the information and the direction, the guidance that we have outside isn't it wasn't serving me, it wasn't helping me. And so I'm kind of an observer, someone who constantly questions. And so if it wasn't serving me, it surely wasn't the only fit solution. And so that's when I went into the personal brand space. And what I realized was that the landscape on personal brand was very one-sided. And because if you look at a lot of the personal brand talk today, it's very tactical. It's copywriting this and show yourself this way. And these are tactics to manipulate someone's perspective. And what I found was I tried that and it didn't work, which meant that there was something more to it than simply just following the lead of someone else. And with that, I kind of understood that what was more important wasn't so much personal brand, but personal identity. And I kind of shifted into that, and it's here where I'm kind of making the mark in terms of helping people transition from personal brand more to personal identity. And hopefully that kind of sums up kind of where I am right now in terms of really what I'm doing.
I love that. You're right. It's about identity and owning that, owning your authenticity as well. And that we don't have to copy someone else in order to succeed. I think that's really important. There's certain approaches and strategies that may have more success for sure. But at the end of the day, if it's not authentic to you, is it even a personal brand? And I think the answer is no, right? How could we copy something else and have it be authentic? There is only one genuine article. So aren't we lessening ourselves
Hmm.
and our personal brands, don't you think, by trying to mimic something else?
Yes. And I think short term, Tara, is we'd like to have things quick. We'd like the instantaneous results, which is why we get hooked on these ideas that somebody else seems to have the answer, right? It took someone 10 years to figure out something, but I'm going to change your life in three weeks. For me, something like that doesn't make sense, because how can one area of development contribute to our whole lifestyle of where we are and where we're going? But yeah, no, absolutely true. And this is why it didn't work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love how you've all, aligned with your authentic self, and that you help others do that too. But I think you're right. It starts with self leadership. And ultimately, it's showing up, as the best version of ourselves. But what is that? But then leading ourselves and identifying these areas in our life, as well, that are holding us back or blocking us in some kind of a way. There's so much wisdom and value in that, because ultimately we can have all the strategies and tips and tricks and all of these things under the sun. But if we have a belief system, for example, that's contradictory to that, well, guess what? It probably won't work, right? Um,
Absolutely.
it's not going to be fruitful and not going to produce the results that we want. But showing up with a developing a personal brand and showing up with confidence is not easy, though. It's
No.
not easy for a lot of people. So how do you bridge that gap? Because we're talking about, showing up as your most authentic version of yourself. Honestly, that's really hard for a lot of folks. They're afraid of judgment or retribution or people just not liking them. That's a hard thing to navigate, don't you think?
So I think one of the key things that you said was authenticity, and I always come back to this, and I think it's a big contributor here that I believe we're chasing authenticity.
Mm,
We're trying to be authentic. We're trying to show authenticity, and it seems like a trigger which is actually tripping us. And so this is one of the what I call one of the power shifts in 10 power shifts that I talk about in terms of personal brand is we need to stop chasing authenticity and actually change that language to congruency, because it's in congruency that people will be able to ascertain and determine really who you are. Because we could try to be authentic as much as we want to be. In actual fact, nobody on the outside could tell whether you're truly authentic or not. How is anybody on the outside supposed to tell you whether that's true or not? And so we're chasing something that nobody can tell you. Does it
mm.
make sense? And so we need to shift that. We need
That's
to shift
interesting.
that to congruency. And what is congruency? And I just want to quote John Maxwell here. I don't know if you know John Maxwell, a really good leadership expert. And he says people do what people see. And congruency is all about that. How do we really stay congruent in our expression, the things that we do, right? Our action, the behavior, our perceptions, personal brand, the relationships and commitments that we make and the effort that we take. Is there congruency in that?
Mhm.
And when there isn't, that is when we start feeling disconnected inside, because we're trying to chase authenticity. Now we're never truly authentic, right? We have a different personality for a different person, different category of people. What my question is, how do we stay congruent in all of those? So I think congruency is really critical to that gap.
I love that. Of course, right? It's so important. Azahi, let's hear a little bit from you as well. We're talking about how did we get started, right? Because I think again, a lot of people are on that journey. How to even get started. So we've been talking about authenticity, congruency, um, but there's so much more to this, and a lot of people are just afraid to get it going. But what advice would you have as well? Do you think, Azahi, for somebody just getting started building their personal brand? I think we're having technical difficulties here. Yep.
Is he, is he gone
Yeah,
for a swimming?
I
He's gone
think
for a
so.
swim. He's gone for a swim.
Oh, that's funny. It is challenging sometimes getting multiple different time zones on here, but um, let's talk about this. What advice would you have for somebody? We talked about it's the long game, right? This is a marathon, not a sprint. So, what advice would you think would be good for somebody who, they're a little frustrated by their personal brand, maybe maybe they don't think it's putting a return on their investment. Maybe they feel like, you know, why keep going? Because I think a lot of people have felt that way. Have you ever felt that way? Why keep going?
That is a powerful question. And I think that is the answer to the initial question of what to do when someone's starting their personal brand.
Hmm.
And let me kind of reframe it a little bit. So Here's the first thing that I would suggest. We need to shift our thinking about brand. The lens in which we talk about something matters significantly. A lot of the time, what you'll find is when you're talking about personal brand, we've got expectation and ROI in our mind. This is limiting because then when it doesn't work out the way we want it to work out, there's a big separation between what we want and what we're trying. So we need to shift that. So I think you mentioned it already. The one thing that we need to understand is there is no starting point and there is no end point to brand. It's a continuous process. But what does that mean? That means your brand, the personal brand that we are, it already exists. The connections, the assumptions, the thoughts, they're already developed and developing in consciousness and unconsciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So the only time really it's important is when we've kind of woken up and we said, hey, what's going on is what you're saying, right? Why do we still carry on is what am I, who am I, and how do I represent myself? So firstly, know that you're not early in the game and you're not late either. You are where you are, and all of the connections and the way I talk about brand is the emotional connections. Those connections already happened and happening. What we need to do is just change that and become aware of that and intentional now once we've awoken. And so I'm going to suggest the second thing is to forget about personal brand.
Ah, yeah,
Ooh, okay. Here we
I
go.
like it.
So
I like it.
we need to forget about personal brand because it really isn't the starting point. All the top influencers, you know, they say success leaves clues, Tara, right? People have been looking at the wrong clues. And I tell you what they've been looking at. They're looking at the selfish desires that they have that form their credibility. What are the real clues? So think about this. People like Gary V, Alex Hormozy, all these bigger players that we already know. John Maxwell is back now. Um, all the most influential people that don't talk about personal brand are the true personal brands.
Mm.
They don't talk about personal brand, which means personal brand is something that was artificially manufactured, labeled, and sold. So we need to forget about personal brand. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm saying it's not important at the initial stages. So here's what I want people to think about. It's a secondary thought, personal brand is. And how I'm going to explain it, visualize this. Whoever's listening, let's visualize this for me. 3 concentric circles. The middle circle, the smallest circle, let's label it core identity. When you truly know and you're self aware of really who you are and what it is that you bring to the world, not products or services, we're not talking, this is not entrepreneurial language, what it is that my soul brings here. When you understand that, we move to the next concentric circle. And that next concentric circle is labeled inner guidance. When we know who we are, then we now can define around that core identity how we guide ourselves in our lives. Business comes into it at some point. Once we know and we've defined that inner guidance and now how we move forward, now we move to the outer concentric circle. The outer concentric circle is labeled external expression. It's here where personal brand lives. It's the outside perspective,
Mm-hmm.
the external thing. And so most often we are trying to build the external and then shift the internal to reflect the external. And it doesn't work that way. The middle should come out. We build the inner guidance. That inner guidance gives you a sense of certitude of who you are. Because the most powerful thing in the world is knowing who you are. Identity. When we know that, then it moves to the external expression, which means now if we know who we are and what we're here to do, that dictates how we show up, doesn't it?
Well, that's congruency, like what you talked about before, right? That's, I think, like what you're saying, that's the true path to congruency, right? Starting
Yes.
from inside, and then going outwardly. Brilliant. That's a good visualization there. Azahi, I would love to hear from you. Um, you know, big personal brand philosophies that we're talking about today. This is something that I think can help a lot of people as they're developing their personal brands. What advice would you have to somebody who is developing their personal brand? Oh, pardon me.
Um, oh yeah, I think I'm up now. Okay, yeah. Thanks for having me once again, Tara. Not a proper way to market Nigeria, the internet and all of that right now. Yeah. So I think angst has actually hit a lot of things. I think away from all of the semantics is more about understanding at the core what the essence of building a personal brand is. What we see flying everywhere is more of personal marketing as against personal branding at the core. It is away from understanding who you are internally, like angst said, and then having that being expressed. It's more about you, it's the meaning of you. But if you're not self-aware and you don't clearly understand who you are, you can never be authentic. Instead, you would try to mold your personality to be something that is marketable, to achieve what you want to achieve, as against, and that's it. It's that I am so true that I'm not scared of being the odd person in the room because I'm me.
Isn't that
Do you
so
understand?
freeing though? But that develops like a ton of
Yes.
confidence right there. And that's
Yeah.
that's one of the like big things that I've noticed. It's like I'm no longer feeling like I have to wear a mask. I no longer feel like I have to blend in. There is so much freedom
That's
in
confidence. Yeah.
that's confidence. Like confidence can look different for different people, but for me, it's I don't want to hide who I am anymore. And you get to that point where you're just like, this is me. Take it or leave
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
I
and
think
you can express it. Sorry, Ant. Yeah, and I think you can express it in a way that it doesn't then express it with the level of empathy. Because we're all in our own bubbles, we're all in our own, in our worlds. So how do I then express it in a way that I'm not then being made to go back to my shell, right? But then I do not make someone feel less, than they are or than themselves. So it's you amplifying the meaning of you, right? It is, and that's what I see us do. And that's one thing, what's my thought, what's my idea of this. It doesn't then automatically mean that this other person's perspective of how they express themselves is wrong, right? If it is obviously achieving their goal for them. But then at the core, and this is a narrative I think few thought leaders like us can actually shape. People like us that have that strong voice should shape, because we have a lot of people there saying I'm a personal brand expert, I'm a brand, and all of that. But then at the core of it is that you're literally just speaking towards the marketing end of it, as against helping these people understand who they are internally and expressing that bit externally. It's in a bid to fit into the status quo, as against being original enough to even attract people that are like you. That spiral of silence has to change. And I think that's why we're having this kind of conversation.
I love that. One of my good friends, I asked her, I said, how did you find me on LinkedIn? I don't even remember how I meet some people. You know how it is. And she said, well, I saw a post from you and it was like a little tiny light going off in a big crowded room, and like somebody had a little tiny lighter, and I saw you in a dark big crowded space, and I saw that one little flicker of light, and I went to it. And she said, well, and Anks and I were talking about this earlier, it was like you left a breadcrumb trail for me to
Mm.
follow, people, and you were the one little light in a big dark room. And honestly, that's what it is, right? Is that not what it is, guys? What do you think?
Clearly, it is. It is. I totally agree with that. It is that you are then that leading light, and it's like these people that actually find you being the voice, being that person that could actually express who they are for them. It's implicit egoism, basic, semantics. Is that I'm attracted to things that are like me, and because you have been able, you're bold enough, you're confident enough, you understand who you are, you've been able to express it well enough, within a community. And then you help this person know that, hey, you're not alone here. It is that you are part of a community and I see you. I'm a voice like you. But then I also want to help you express you, even if we have a couple of things in common. And that's it literally. To me, I see branding in three pillars. I see it for first of recognition, and the recognition then leads to distinction, and then from distinction is preference. And by that, it's that I recognize who I am internally, but then an ant would recognize that this is Isaac he's speaking or Tara speaking, right? And then Tara knows that the Angst's ideology or the way Angst would position himself is different from how Isaiah would position himself, which is an expression of who we are. And of that, when it comes to conversations relating to his expertise or my expertise or your expertise, we prefer ourselves. That is the expression of personal branding. And then when you want to make it commercial, as it is, that can be a later conversation. But at the core, it is that you are building the foundation well enough and not starting off from the decorations and the roof. It is that you build your foundation solid enough to express your personal brand. I think, yeah.
I like that. But we're talking about building this personal brand, but what about people that are shy, introverted, people that are suffering from imposter syndrome, lack of confidence, low self-belief? Guys, I think most of us have been there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What do you guys think about that? How do we navigate that as somebody who may fit that category?
So I'll add I'll add a perspective here. Then I'm big on identity, right? And
I
I've
can tell.
only spoken
Just
about
a
that,
little bit.
right? Those words that you just said were just labels.
Yeah.
And if there was one piece of advice to anyone, it doesn't matter introverted, extroverted, shy, bold, the labels we give ourselves determines the identity we adopt. Here's the thing, if someone says, I'm lacking confidence, what they're saying is, I have 100% belief in the lack and zero belief in confidence. So,
Mm,
what they believe is that there is nothing there, when in fact they should believe that there is something there. Now, here's the
mm,
thing. Let me give you an example. Let's say oxygen. Let's take it very simple. Oxygen, right? We breathe, and we don't think about, well, in the next 5 minutes, are we going to breathe? We have to have a sense of certitude that I'm going to continue to breathe and oxygen is going to continue to flow through me. If we're talking about confidence and I have to experience something to gain confidence, that is a misinterpretation, because I have to give some level of faith that I'm going to breathe in the next 5 minutes for it to actually happen. Now, what does that mean then? That means we shouldn't get stuck on the idea of, I need to experience something to be confident. Instead, it should be summoned. It's summoning, right? There is no a confidence meter that goes like this and like this. That, okay, well, in this part of my journey, I'm at 80% confidence. It doesn't exist like that. It is or it isn't. And what that means is it's a state, right? Confidence is a state, and you can literally go like this and be confident right now if you wanted to. right? Just through memory, pick out the best times that you've had, that you've overcome something. That's it. You're in a powerful, confident state. So what's important here is this idea of being is seeing and seeing is being. When we who we are, and we're talking about confidence here, who we are is directly related to the mindset that we have. Who we are is how we think. So we need to summon to be able to see it. Now, if we only are someone who only believes in the lack, that I don't have this, I don't have that, guess what we're going to see? And then when you see that, then now you become that. It's a vicious cycle.
I agree.
And so think about it this way. Let's say, for example, I went to Paris last week on holiday, and I was on the train using the underground. I'll use that as an example. So if you're on the train and you see a gentleman walk on the platform and he's got 3 kids, they're a little bit older. He sits down and he looks a bit glum, he looks a bit sad, but his 3 kids are messing around on the train. And you're going to stand there like, control your kids. You know, what's wrong with you? Why is this father not saying anything to his kids? But without the understanding, without the mindset, we can't understand what he's going through. So imagine you say to him, hey, listen, what's up? Why are you not telling your kids to behave themselves? And he says, hey, listen, I just got a call 5 minutes ago that their mother died. And I don't know how to tell the boys. See how that shifts our understanding, being and seeing. When we have the level of understanding, we shift our seeing in a different way. And so what I encourage there is to see more of yourself. Confidence exists. You just need to tap into it. Because
Yes.
when you are yourself, then you can be more of it. Right?
I agree. I believe that wholeheartedly. I think our most confident version of ourselves already exists within us.
Perfect.
And that, and that'll be a line in my TED Talk, so I can't say it right now, but in the sense,
Sneak peek.
it is within us already. So
Yeah.
it's a wellspring that we can tap into, and that confident version, I promise, is in each person. Azahi, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts? Somebody,
Yeah.
I mean, have you always been confident?
You know, one of my mentees walked up to me, and that was how she started off our conversation. Her first question was, "Why are you? How did you become so confident?" Yeah, that was the
I
first,
love that.
and I, and immediately I laughed. I said I had to be big in my mind, because the world is wild.
Yeah.
you know and that way I constantly tell myself, hey, there's no one greater than you in this world. Just a reassurance, most of the time. Now, speaking to what you said, and I loved what Angst said. Now, humans naturally, we tend to tag things in order to understand things, uh, and our ways of reacting to things we do not understand is either fear or defense. Is it that we run away or we attack that thing, right? And that's one reason why we then tend to sideline people with or individuals that we do not understand. And because of the natural human nature to want to feel among, basic Maslow's theory, I have the basic needs, but then I want to be a part of a community, right? It is then said that I am not accepted because we then need external approvals, right? But then all of these things can gravitate towards you if you have an understanding of who you are and you're not afraid of championing your thoughts, right? Um, and so, because of that, we then assume that we cannot express ourselves as much because we're not going to be accepted. And automatically we are labeled as not confident, we are labeled as introvert, we are labeled as people, because we then keep to ourselves and all of that. I'll tell you the truth: introvert, extrovert, you are loud in one part of your mind, you are loud somewhere. You might not just be loud outside, but you're probably loud in your head. And I like to have conversations with introverts because Trust me, you don't want to play in their mind. They are very, very, very wild right there, um, and so don't first off, don't seek external approvals, right? You are the approval you need, and that's the
Ooh,
first thing.
I love that. I love that. Well,
Right?
don't seek external validation. I think of it as like a
Yes.
drug, external validation. It's I liken it to the high of chasing one more. Oh, I just need one more accolade, one more recognition, one more degree, one
Yeah.
blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But you know what? That doesn't build confidence, and it's not
Yeah.
built from a place of inner championship. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I think it actually comes naturally when you go up the ladder, when you become louder, when it naturally comes.
Yeah.
And by that you're then showing those people that are like you that it is possible to. So I saw a post from Anks, I will tell you now, I hate you, man. I hate you so much because it's how you go deep with your post, man. How you go really deep with your post. A recent post from Anks, he said, be it or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Start being.
Be it,
So
be it, so
someone
others can become it.
that post. When I saw it, I was like, God, how does this guy think?
He's a
And
smart
that's the fact.
guy.
And that's what we are doing here. Tara, with your TED talk, you're
Yes.
being it,
Mhm.
right? So other people that are walking on your path can know it's possible. You know?
Yes.
I
That
want, I
is
want to add, I want to add something there, and you touched
Yes,
upon,
please.
you touched upon that, as a is there's one trick that we can all use, and I really don't like all this introversion, extroversion, shy, lacking this. It doesn't matter. We're all capable.
mhm.
And
Yeah,
instead of labeling yourselves in those sort of ways, there's one thing that we can all agree upon. Whether you're shy or not, when you're emotionally charged, everything happens. When something emotionally triggers you, there is no shyness. There is nothing that can stop you to put something right or do something. So the key thing there, and what you just touched upon, this be it so others can become it, is really like kind of personal brand 101 for me, is that um, we need to truly move out of ourselves. Your shyness will go very quickly, and your confidence will peak when you are truly invested in other people, helping somebody, shifting them, empowering them. So the one trick we need to do is move out of ourselves and go into somebody else, but not just what you've heard before, like, yeah, we need to be empathetic, all the jargon that you hear. What I mean by that is you truly need to be emotionally charged by the problem that you truly solve. I help you build authority on LinkedIn is not an emotionally charged uh, 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 process, right? You need to um, get behind a real problem that you're trying to solve. And when you do, listen, the introversion, it doesn't matter. The extroversion doesn't matter. The shyness doesn't matter. What matters is, can we solve it? And that is what I just wanted to add. Get emotionally charged on something that none.
I love that. Going back to my book, that's why I wrote my book. I I didn't want to keep any information inside, and I wanted to help other people. And you know what? It gives me an emotional charge, because it gives me a feeling of fulfillment and alignment with purpose. If I'm helping other people, then I'm living up to a purpose in some kind of way. And if I needed to write a book and tell my story to be able to accomplish that, then so be it. I think that's so important because you know what? You're right. At the end of the day, we could be really successful today, right? We could have a kind of a shallow business model and be very successful and make seven figures. But is it going to be that way in a year? I don't know. And you know what? Would it lead you to fulfillment long term? Absolutely not, right? Kind of goes back to those values, that why, your mission. Why are you doing what you do? And is it ultimately helping other people? These are questions I think we all need to ask when building a personal brand or just being a human being, right? And just showing up for others. It's so important. Azahi, any last thoughts there? I think his internet might be out again. Angst, do you have any last thoughts for us?
Be it so others can become it.
I love that.
Forget the fake it till you make it. And I've heard another one, be it before you become it. All of that's great. The key
Yes.
thing that's missing in personal brand today is contribution. It doesn't really matter what you do, how you represent yourself. The 101 here is your effectiveness is dependent on whether somebody else is benefiting.
Yes. Yes. Azahi, go ahead. Azahi, can you hear us? I don't think he can hear us. Okay. Well, that's a wrap for the show today. Thank you so much for being a guest today. Anks Patel.
I
Again, Anks.
appreciate you. Thank you, Tara.
I'm so happy to have you. Such an enlightening conversation, but be it so others can become it. Lead the way for others. Show others that it's possible for them too. You know what? Everybody has been there. Everybody has at some point in time doubted their abilities, but they saw one other person doing that exact same thing that they once told themselves wasn't possible. And maybe that sparked a change within them as well to do that thing. Hey, I hope everybody that's listening to this develops a personal brand. I want everybody to have success. Why? Because there's enough for all. There's enough for all when we're aligned with purpose, with a mission and intention. But I love it. Azahi, any parting words? Are you back? I tried. All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching the show today, and we will catch you on the next episode.